Well, good morning. Glad everybody's here this morning. Nobody slept through their alarm this morning, right? 2? That's too early. Oh my goodness. Worried the clock wasn't going to set? What? Were you worried the clock wasn't going to reset itself? Just couldn't sleep, huh? Just couldn't sleep, man. Woo! 2 o'clock, that's too early. I had Vanderbilt University come into camp last night. They were supposed to be there at 6. They rolled in at 10:30. But they're here this week to work with the Cherokee Nation in the elderly care. So it's kind of neat that they come and do that. That's Vanderbilt University. They do what's called an alternative spring break. So, they're not a Christian university. So their alternative spring break is actually like a mission trip. They are in Nashville, yeah. Oh, yeah? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so they've got about 12 students here in the area. So, all right. Thank you for all your prayers, by the way. Those of you who have been praying for my daughter, she actually came home last night. So they did go in. They couldn't figure out what was going on. They did laparoscopic diagnostic surgery, which just looking for whatever. And it was evident right away. She had scar tissue from her last surgery 3 weeks ago that had kinked one of her bowels. And so that's what was going on. And so they were able to cut away the scar tissue, and she's great. She's good. But I told her 4 surgeries in 18 months, it's enough. No more. You're not allowed to have any more. She is 32. I'm not sure I have too much parental, guidance on that. But I guess she doesn't have to listen to what I say. But anyhow, I'm glad that she's home. Lydia's going to be staying with her until Wednesday. So Lydia won't be home until late Wednesday night. So, but it's all good. It's all good. Be our first anniversary, though, that we're going to spend away from each other. 35th anniversary, so. Never? Oh. That's what happens when you marry a military man. Or law enforcement, yeah. Yeah. I'll make it through, I guess. All right, so we're back to, talking about point of impact. Last week we started off just talking overall what a point of impact is, and this week we're going to start with more specific individuals in the Bible that receive this point of impact. And like I said, this sometimes is a negative thing, but and most times it's a positive thing too. And by the end of this class in May here, we're gonna be talking about how we can have positive points of impact with God. Okay, that God's message, God's our obedience to God creates a positive influence not only in our own lives but in the lives of all the people around us. Okay, so that's where we're headed. But today we're going to be talking about Moses. Moses, boy, I'll tell you what, Moses is an easy one to start off with, and that's the reason we're starting off with Moses. Moses is an easy one to look at when we talk about points of impact, because how many points of impact are there in Moses' life? We mentioned a few last week, but give them to me again here. This is where you guys talk again, remember? Don't have me ask your favorite colors again here. Come on. What's a point of impact in Moses' life? What's that? Killing of the Egyptian. Absolutely. What's another one? Going up on the mountain for the 10 Commandments, Mount Sinai. Burning bush. Okay. What else? What? Floating down the river. We're going to talk about that for a minute. Yeah. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. What else? The 10 plagues. Yeah. Yeah. Listen, Moses, if you were to describe Moses and his, early in his life, if you were to describe Moses early in his life and his faith in God, how would you describe it? Reluctant. I think that's perfect. That's a great word. Reluctant, absolutely. I think he struggles. It's not just that he struggles with his own faith. He struggles with who he is. I think it's a very confusing life for him, especially in the very beginning. He's going to struggle with who he is, and he's definitely going to struggle with his faith and with what God's plan is for him. Okay, because it's going to be very, very difficult for him to understand this. He's confused right away. Again, Moses' life starts off in a very difficult situation, right? We read in Exodus chapter 2, he's born in this time period that there was a king that did not know Joseph, right? What does that mean? The king that did not know Joseph. What's that mean? So there's a king, so there's a pharaoh in Egypt that doesn't know who Joseph. What's the point for Joseph? Why do they need to know Joseph?
Well, Joseph was in favor with the pharaohs before this one, and now this guy doesn't know him, so he's not going to do him and the Jews any favor.
Right. So this is hundreds of years after that. Okay, so realize that the Israelites are going to be enslaved in Egypt for how many years? Anybody know? 430 years. 430 years they're enslaved in Egypt. Now, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people who just hear that immediately think that the Egyptians took them into captivity. Right? No, that's not what happened. What happened was, remember, Joseph gets sold by his brothers, ends up in Egypt, and ultimately ends up second in command of Egypt and saves all of Egypt and all the lands around him from this terrible famine that they had. And so the Pharaoh at that time, who did know Joseph, right, gives Joseph and his family, there are only 72 people at that point, okay, gives Joseph and his family the land of Geshem? Gersher, sorry. I had a brain lapse there for a second. Gersher. And so it's Goshen. Oh my goodness. Whoa, there it is. All right, Goshen. Gave them the land of Goshen. And Goshen is the worst place in Egypt? No, it's the best place in Egypt, right? He's being rewarded for allowing or saving Egypt. So he gets the land of Goshen, and this land of Goshen is just the best of the best in Egypt. And so the Israelites prosper there. They prosper and they prosper and they prosper until the fact comes where the Pharaoh is actually thinking, the new Pharaoh who did not know Joseph, many years later, is thinking, man, why are all these foreigners living in our land, right? Yeah, and not only that, he's saying if we go to war, they might not take our own side, and we're going to be eaten up from within. In other words, so that's what it means when he says there became a king that did not know Joseph. And so during that time period that Moses is born, the Pharaoh had made an edict that all the boys, all male children that are born from the Israelites be thrown into the Nile. All right? If you get rid of the boys, you don't have warriors. If you get rid of the boy, if you get rid of one of the two sexes, you won't have any more kids. He's killing off a generation of warriors that can rise up against him. And that's all he's trying to do. So here's the thing. Anybody see the movie? Never mind the movie. Never mind. Oh, it's the kids. It's the cartoon movie about Moses. Yeah, Prince of Egypt. There it is. I couldn't remember it now. Prince of Egypt. No, no. It is beyond. But to the point, they picture in this movie Moses' mother, who hid him for 3 months, takes him and puts him in this basket and then sets him in the Nile. And in that movie, do you remember the movie? Yeah, what happens in the movie with the basket? Oh, it tosses and turns. The Nile looks like a Category 4 river, and they're whitewater rafting with this thing. And it's just barely missing the boats. It's crocodiles are trying to chomp on it. I mean, that is so far from the reality of this, okay? That is so far from the reality. Moses' mother had no intention of anything happening to Moses. Did she set him in the Nile? Yes, among the reeds on the side of it. Did he float anywhere? No. No, he did not float anywhere. She set him there so that he could be found, because that was where the Pharaoh's daughter went to bathe. And she sent his sister to watch over him. And his life, she's pretty sly. I'm going to use the word sly. She's pretty sly with this. She was able to hide him for 3 months, and then she's able to put him right where she knows that he's going to take. Not only that, but then Miriam is right there, right there. His sister's right there, runs up to Pharaoh's daughter and goes, do you need somebody to nurse the child? Because I think I know somebody. And so Moses is, I don't know how long Moses actually spends in that little basket. It's not very long. He goes from the house to the basket, right back to the house until he's ready to be into Pharaoh's household. Now, growing up in Pharaoh's household is going to be confusing for him, though, because at some point, he is going to realize that he is not an Egyptian. He's not an Egyptian. And that's that whole thing when we talk about the killing of the Egyptian slave driver there. He knows who he is. He knows who his people are. But his people don't recognize him either as one of them. So Moses' life is broken up into 3 40-year sections. Okay? 3 40-year sections. The first one is from his birth all the way up to the time he kills an Egyptian. All right? He's about 40 years old when that happens. And we're gonna start right there. So here's the thing. I think one of the problems that he struggles with is that he definitely has a fear of consequences, like we all do, right? Anybody not fearful of consequences, right? I tell my son all the time, there's good consequences and there's bad consequences, but there's always consequences. Our actions, no matter what we do, have consequences. And so, he has a fear of consequences, but he also is going to struggle with his identity here. Open up to Exodus chapter 2. Go down to verse 11. Exodus chapter 2, verse 11. Okay, it says, one day when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and looked on their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people. Now, do you see that already? He knows he's not Egyptian, right? He went out to see his people, right? And he saw this Egyptian beating one of his people. He looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he struck down the Egyptian and hit him in the sand. When he went out the next day, behold, 2 Hebrews were struggling together, and he said to the man in the wrong, why do you strike your companion? He answered, who made you prince and judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Then Moses was afraid and thought, surely the thing is known. When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and stayed in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. And so, I think this is definitely an impact in his life, right? A point of impact in his life. He is, well, pretty much lost at this point, right? I don't know if any of you have ever been in this not this situation specifically, but in a situation where you felt completely lost. No idea what direction to go in. I mean, can you, if you've been through it, you can imagine it, but can you imagine, if you've never been in that, the idea of not knowing what to do next, right? Not knowing at all what to do. He has no idea where he's going to go. He has no idea how he's going to live. He has no idea anything in his life. Everything has been taken away. Now, why has it been taken away? Consequences of his own actions. Okay? And that's going to become very important by the end of our study today, okay? I want you to remember that. Moses is fearful of consequences right now, and he's done it to himself, okay? So in Midian, the next 40 years he spends in Midian. So Midian is a wonderful place for him. He gets married to Zipporah. He saves Jethro's or Reuel, either one. They're both the same name. He saves his daughters from the shepherds at the well, and he in turn gives Zipporah his daughter to him for a bride, and they have Gershom, their first son. It says in verse 16 here, now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to drew water and filled troughs to water their father's flock. The shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and saved them and watered their flock. When they came home to their father Reuel, he said, how is it that you come home so soon today? They said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds and even drew us water and watered the flock. He said to the daughters, then where is he? Why have you left the man? Call him that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses his daughter Zipporah. She gave birth to a son, and he called him Gershom, and said, I have been a sojourner in a foreign land. And so here it is. He has found a place. I'd say this is a minor point of impact in his life, but this isn't a God thing. God is definitely pointing him in the right directions. But don't get me wrong about that. I believe God is involved in all of our lives. But this here is not a lesson that God is trying to teach him at all. So he is able to spend the next 40 years in this place. Now again, does he know who he is?
Well, they call him an Egyptian. The daughters say, I got the Egyptians say this. So I guess he probably is dressed different. Hair is cut different.
He's been living in the Pharaoh's household, so he looks Egyptian. Absolutely. He looks Egyptian. But in his mind, he's not. So is he struggling? Who he is? Identity crisis. The first identity crisis in the Bible, right here. So he's having this struggle with who he is. And again, it's not just who he is, but what is he supposed to do? What is he supposed to do? He doesn't. Has anybody ever felt that way? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Many of us have gone through a situation like that. where you have no idea. I mean, the first time I ended up in Oklahoma, it was because I was having this problem, okay? Now, I didn't kill anybody, but wanted to. My fiance left with my best friend, so, but anyhow, moved to Oklahoma and ended up lost, just out in, anybody know where Evening Shade Road is? You know where that is? Evening Shade Road in Vian, Oklahoma. It's a dirt road. It's a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. That's what it is. And that's where I lived. My grandfather bought a small ranch down there, and he was going to retire on it, but he hadn't retired yet, so I just went down there because I was lost. I had no idea. I tell people I spent a lot of time looking at the stars and writing really bad poetry. Okay? That's what I did. Because I had no idea what is my life? Now here's the thing. I love the fact that that's when I met Lydia. And she's the one who brought me to God. And, you know, that's what's going to happen with Moses. You know, God's going to show up in his life. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. God's going to show up in his life. That's what Moses is missing. Does Moses know who he is? No, he doesn't know who he is. He's struggling with who he is. He has no idea. He's dressed like an Egyptian. He's probably dressed like a Midianite now, actually. You know, he comes in looking like an Egyptian. He thinks he's an Israelite, but now he's probably more, you know, in Jethro's family. So now he's more like a Midianite. So what is he? Well, God's going to step into his life and say, this is who you are. Yeah. He's a man without God. And God's going to step into his life and say, it's time. It's time. See, he was an Israelite without God. Right? And what's an Israelite without God? Nothing. Nothing. Actually, technically, not an Israelite. Right? The only thing he was is circumcised on the 8th day. That's all he had. That's as much of an Israelite as he was. That's like saying you're a Christian because you go to church. Right? In name only, right? Exactly. And so the burning bush, he's going to come upon the burning bush after being in Midian 40 years. He's going to come across this burning bush, and this burning bush, is going to change his life. This is definitely a point of impact where God steps into his life and says, you got to change. The direction you're going needs to change. Who you are, who you think you are, needs to change. Realize that who you think you are and who I know you are two different things. And so God is going to call on him to kind of come out of his shell and rise up to the man that he needs to be. Now, God has prepared him for this entire time. Why do you think he's in Pharaoh's household? Don't you think God has something to do with that?
Well, of course. And he's educating him, number one. He's going to write the first 5 books of the Bible, which are not written, but he has this education that's going to allow him to do that. He knows warfare. I mean, he would have been taught all these as a prince.
Absolutely. And he's able to have dialogue with Pharaoh, right? Not just anybody's going to be able to walk into Pharaoh and say, "Hey, let my people go." That for most people that would just get them killed.
And Midian is about 300 to 700 miles, depending on where he ended up.
Depending on where he actually is, right?
And so I was looking it up.
Yep.
He probably ran when he first left. He was probably running.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be caught. And so he is a physical specimen. And he can live in that desert.
Yeah, realize Midian is on the other side of the Red Sea, right?
Yeah, it's over in Saudi Arabia. So,
Right.
It's really amazing when you study this
It
man
is.
and what he did.
Absolutely. All right, so this point of impact is found in in chapter 3, in the first part of chapter 3, let's see here. It says, "Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, and the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called him out of the bush. Moses, Moses, he said, here I am. Then he said, do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place that you are standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face. He was afraid to look at God. So why, let me ask you this. All right, so he goes over there not knowing it's God, right? It's just a phenomenon that he wants to figure out what's going on. Bush is burning, but it's not being consumed. Why is that? So he's going to go check it out. But God talks to him through the burning bush, and here's the thing. He's asking him, he tells him who he is, and his reaction is hiding his face from God, right? Why does he hide his face from God? All the above, absolutely. Yeah, when we talk about, it's very difficult to understand coming face to face with God like that, because we don't get to do that in this way. But this connection with God, having a true connection with God, there's emotions that go with it, okay? But there's also a lot of thought that goes with that, because you're immediately thinking, I'm not worthy, right? What's the first thing Peter does when he figures out it's Jesus that's in the boat with him? Go away from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man, right? Falls to his knees. We need to realize that having this close point of impact with God is something that, unfortunately, we don't get to witness all the time. Now, I do believe that we do witness that sometimes, all right? Anybody ever have a spiritual moment in their lives where you just felt closer to God than you've ever felt? Yeah, absolutely, all right? And vice versa, there's been times in our lives that we felt the farthest away from God we ever felt too, right? And there's a difference. Moses, who's been in the literally in the wilderness in Midian for 40 years, feeling like he has no connection to anything or anyone, right? Now all of a sudden has the God of all creation that he's heard of, because he knows it's the God of his people, right? Finally sets foot in front of him and is calling to him specifically. The impact that he has on his life is going to, from this point forward especially, is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be miraculous. But here's the thing. Moses, having this identity crisis and going through this for the last 40 years, has no confidence in himself. Has no confidence in himself. Now, here's something I want to ask. Do you have confidence in your own Christianity? Think about that. You don't have to answer that out loud, but just think about that for a second. Do you have confidence in your own Christianity? If God were to call you to a specific task right here, right now, today, would you be confident to go and do it? Again, don't answer. Just think about that. See, I think our relationship with God, if our relationship with God is a relationship that we are kindling, to use the burning bush metaphor there, if we're kindling it, if we're actually building it up, then when when those times come where God does ask us to do something, we're going to step up and do it. Moses is not at that place. Moses needs a lot of convincing from God. And God, at the very beginning, is very, very patient with him. I cannot believe how patient God is with him. He's got all the excuses, but even before the excuses start, God says, hey, listen, here's some signs that I am who I am, okay? Here's some signs. He says, grab that rod over there. He throws the rod down, becomes a snake. Now he tells him to pick it up. That is one of the funniest verses to me in the Bible. I'm going to tell you right now, because I don't know about you, not a big fan of snakes. But I throw a rod down and it becomes a snake, and then God tells me to pick it up. I don't know about that. Why don't we just let that one go? But he picks it back up and it becomes becomes a staff again, right? Here it is. Then he tells him, put his, again, another funny, I guess I've got a bad sense of humor, but he says, put your hand in your cloak. He puts his hand in his cloak, takes it out, it's leprous. It's leprous. Right? Then what's he tell him to do? Put it back in your cloak. Are you nuts? No, I'm not putting that in there. But he does, and it comes back out. It's just fine. So he tries to explain to him that's just to prove who God is to Moses. And then he says, listen, you're going to go back to Egypt, and you're going to get my people out of there. I've heard their cries. They need to leave. And Moses comes up with all sorts of excuses, right? Verse 1 of chapter 4, he says, they're not going to believe me. They're just not going to believe me. They're not going to believe that you sent me, right? And he reminds them, well, I've given you these signs, so they will. And then he says, no, you know what? Verse 10, I don't really speak eloquently, so fine, not a good idea. Until finally, he basically tells God, no. He does. He doesn't say no. He says, find somebody else. And that's when God's anger burns against Moses, it says, in chapter 4. And he says, you know what, fine, I'll send your brother Aaron. He's on his way now. Meet him in the desert. He'll go with you. He'll be your mouthpiece. And I don't know if it's the first time that Moses realizes that he's not going to be alone. And maybe that's the part that he's really afraid of, is that doing things on your own is very difficult. Most of us, not all of us, but most of us would rather do something with someone rather than all by ourselves. Now, there are times in our lives, obviously, we'd like to be all by ourselves, okay? But for the most part, if you're going to do a task of some sort, it's always good to have someone there. So Moses is going on what I call here is his journey of faith. This is the very beginning of his journey of faith. Realize, Moses, I don't believe, had hardly any faith at all before this. He had no idea who he was. He had no idea who God was. He was an Israelite without his family. He was an Israelite without a home. He was an Israelite without God. Now God is using him in his life, and now he's going to begin the third part of it, the third 40 years of his life, right? The third 40 years. At 80 years old, folks, right? How many of you would like to hear that when you hit 80? And you hit 80, somebody says, okay, all you got is 40 more years. That was a young 80. Yes. Well, I hate to tell you, when he dies, he's a young 120. So, yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing. I'm going to give you just a quick rundown for time's sake. His third part of his life is going to go from now, from the burning bush, or from the to Mount Nebo. Okay, what's Mount Nebo? Anybody know Mount Nebo? It's my favorite mountain. We'll get to it. I'm gonna hold the suspense right there. All right, so he's going to start on his journey of faith, and he's going to grow his faith, and he's going to struggle with the acknowledgement of God and his place in God's kingdom also. But here, he's got the rod. Here's some miracles that he's going to help, that are going to help him along the way. He's turned a rod to a snake. He's got the leprous hand. He's going to the 10 plagues, right? So you got the water into blood, you got the frogs, the lice, the flies, the livestock, the boils, the hail, the locusts, the darkness, and the death of the firstborn. Then he's going to see the parting of the Red Sea. He's going to sweeten the bitter waters of Marah. He's going to have manna, and then he's going to have quail. He's going to take water from a rock. He's going to have a victory over the Amalekites whenever his hands are held up. He's going to have the bronze serpent that he's going to heal people with after they've been bitten by snakes. He's going to open up the ground and swallow Korah and the whole rebellion of Korah. And he's going to witness the cloud of pillar during the day and the cloud of fire at night. Pretty impressive list, isn't it? Pretty impressive list when you think about it. His faith continues to grow. I have a question for you, though. A couple questions. Number one, if you saw all these things, do you think it would grow your faith? I'd hope so. I like that. I like that answer. Why just hope? Why would you hope so? You don't really know. Well, the story is really confusing because here's the thing. Did it grow Moses' faith? Yes. There's no doubt about that, okay? Yes. Did it grow all people's faith that was with Moses? Not at all. They're a bunch of whiners and complainers still, right? That's all they did, whine and complain the whole time. I don't know about you, but if God is directing us, if I went out to get my car today and God came down in a pillar of clouds and says, just follow me, I'm following him, I'm going, right? And these Israelites have a pillar of cloud during the day that they're following and a pillar of fire at night protecting them. And they're worried about what's going to happen next. In our own lives, we have so many promises that the Bible has given us. And so many stories just like this that the Bible's given us. Here's the reality. Should we be worrying about anything? No. Do we worry? Yeah. But these are things we should be learning from. As our faith continues to grow, does not mean that we'll never make any mistakes, and we're going to get to that in just a minute because we need to realize that not everyone else around us is going to grow as fast as us or as slow as us. Okay? But God intends us to share the blessings that he's giving us in order for all of us to grow in our journey of faith, because our journey of faith is personal. We all grow in faith, but we're all not in the same bus. Okay? We're not all in the same bus. So we need to realize that. All right, so I want to finish up Moses here with one of the biggest impacts, I think. Now, there's more. I skipped over Mount Sinai. I know this class is not about getting to every single detail of these people, okay? But just some of the biggest points of impact. So one of the biggest points of impact is at the end of his life. Okay, Moses is called again by God to come to him. He comes to him. God says, the people are complaining again because they have no water. Moses said, all right. Yeah. So Moses is God says, listen, this is a lesson. Because at that point, they're ready to go into the promised land. Okay? They're getting ready to go into the promised land. They're close. And so God says, listen, it's time for them to realize who I am. They need to realize it. If they haven't realized it now, by now, they have to realize it now. And so he says to Moses, I want you to go speak to the rock. Just speak to it. Because I'm in control of everything, is what God is telling him. I'm in control of all things. Everything in this universe, I am in control of. And you go speak to that rock, and water is just going to come forward. And Moses and Aaron's with him. Okay, Aaron's with him. They go to the rock, and I don't know if somebody's pestering him along the way, but by the time he gets there, he is so done with the people. He is frustrated with them. And you want water? You know, that's right. It's like watching Doris with a sledgehammer yesterday, let me tell you what. Doris is out at camp yesterday with a sledgehammer, okay? Because she doesn't like to paint. So she's using a sledgehammer on a floor for me out there. Something to see. I got pictures, by the way, if anybody wants to see them. But he takes that staff and he smacks that rock. Not just once, but twice. Because he's angry. How long are we going to have to put up with you people? What did he do? It's called frustration, but what did he just do? He violated God, but how did he violate God? Not just by striking the rock. He disobeyed him, but he also put himself on the same level. How long do we have to deal with you people? And so God says to him right there and then, this is the point. The point of impact isn't God's punishment for this, but how Moses handles it. God says, that's it. You're not going to enter the promised land. You will not lead my people in the promised land. 40 years he spent leading these people. 40 years he spent judging these people. 40 years he's listened to their complaints. And now he's not going to go. Now there is one consolidation prize that God gives him. He goes up on Mount Nebo. He goes up on Mount Nebo where God shows him the promised land. Here it is. You're never going to set a foot in it, but here it is. And he shows them all of the promised land, which is pretty awesome. Moses goes down from there. He renews the covenant with the people. He gives them a couple of speeches, telling them to make sure they follow God, basically. And then he goes back up on the mountain and dies. And he was no more. And here's the thing. His eyes were not weak, and neither was his strength. So he was a very healthy 120. But here's the thing. Where's the argument? Where's the argument with God? Where's Moses' argument of, hey, wait a minute here. I have been taking care of these people for you for 40 years. For 40 years I've listened to their whining, their complaining, and I've done everything you've asked me to do. I messed up this one time. What?
He also whined and complained to God for years. He was not
But
willing to do what
I understand, but listen, but now at the end of his life, where is he? He's not at that place he was at the burning bush where that first point of impact happened. He's not there where he's going, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I don't have any confidence in myself. No, he's like, okay. Consequences.
and resolved. I think he was just resolved. You're right.
You're right. He never argues. He never says a thing because he knows he was wrong. And he accepts it. And he accepts the consequences. Do you think he'd like to go into the promised land? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. 57 T-bird. I don't know. Compare a 57 T-bird with a land flowing with milk and honey. It's all right. So there's no. My point is with that. That first point of impact at the burning bush, he was struggling. Yes. He didn't know who he was. Yes. But by the end of his life, his journey of faith was one of which he knew exactly his place. So I want you to realize that. I think it's an amazing thing if we just use our journey of faith to continue to grow towards God. And we will have those points of impact in our lives that will change us. That will change us. Very quickly, before I let you go, I knew a man called his name was Don Pierce, and he wasn't very Christian his whole life. He finally did come to Christ and was on fire for Christ for about a year and a half before he found out he had liver cancer. I was with him the day before Christmas in the hospital when he was dying. That night when I left, he said one thing to me that I'll never forget. His journey of faith was one kind of like this, where from nothing to something very amazing. He said this to me. He said, Don, I have no idea what's going to happen next, but I know it's going to be great. I hope our journey of faith can be like that. Let's take a break.